Good evening. I'd like to call the regular Town Council meeting of October 21st to order. And if you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councillor Buganski. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Balboni. Councillor Carey.
Present.
Mayor Delnicki.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Present.
Councillor King. Here. Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Pendleton.
Present.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, Mayor's remarks. I've got a few items. And October 8th, State Representative Delnicki initiated a preliminary meeting with a representative from the Hartford Mayor's Office to discuss the ongoing excessive noise issues emanating from a business in the city of Hartford, affecting the quality of life for the residents in parts of South Windsor. The meeting was scheduled with the legislative delegation, along with myself and Mr. Maniscalco, and Councillor King was also in attendance. I have just reached out to the mayor's office for a follow-up, and I am waiting to hear back for an additional follow-up meeting. October 28th is National First Responders Day. The day honors police officers, paramedics, EMTs, firefighters, and 911 operators who answer the call when a crisis arises, often putting their own lives on the line. October 31st is Halloween, and I would like to provide a friendly reminder when going door to door to please make sure the little ones stay close and watch for cars crossing the road. November 2nd, our Public Works Department will be holding an electronics recycling event from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. here at the South Windsor Town Hall. Residents can recycle their electronics for free and no appointments are required. Curbside vacuum leaf collection will begin on Monday, November 4th. Weather dependent. Program information will be available on the South Windsor's webpage and the 24-hour Public Works hotline, which is 860-648-6371. And Election Day is November 5th. However, Connecticut's early voting period began today, October 21st. The 14-day early voting period will be open until Sunday, November 3rd. Early voting is taking place here at the Town Hall in the Council Chambers. Early voting hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Extended hours are on October 29th and 31st only, and those hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The hours for Election Day on November 5th are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. at your regular voting districts. Veterans Day is November 11th. There will be a Veterans Day ceremony held at Veterans Memorial Park at 11 a.m. Veterans Memorial Park is on Pleasant Valley Road. And lastly, at this time, we have a meeting scheduled on November 4th. This meeting, the night before the election, has traditionally been canceled. At this time, I will hold off canceling until at least 72 hours prior to make sure nothing urgent needs to be done at that time, and I will leave this decision up to Mr. Maniscalco. And thank you. Moving on to item 5. Oh, yes, Councillor Pendleton.
Just a question. We don't need to make a resolution to cancel that November meeting, do we? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item 5, Councillor Buganski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Changes? Excuse me? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6, communications and reports from the town manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I invite Mr. Stetson up to come and do his presentation on sidewalk projects and some other capital projects Public Works is working on, I do have a couple items that are not in the written report for all of you. First of all, I wanted to let the council know I went to a CROG meeting on regional efforts. Specifically, this is more a workshop looking at different regional opportunities between different towns. It was very interesting to hear what the different communities are working on, and kind of a lot of the same stuff, but there are some different entities at the state that are working on some different opportunities. One of the most interesting ones to myself was the idea that the state has actually put a task force together to look at the potential for regionalizing and sharing certain positions due to the challenges that a lot of municipalities are finding with hiring qualified individuals to take on those positions. Some of the findings out of that work group were, due to the educational requirements, one of the interesting ones, but kind of concerning for the times, was the lack of civility within the public sector, particularly working with the public, have driven away a number of people from working in these positions. And as a result, they're trying to figure out ways to entice and elicit new people to come in. So I did attend that workshop. It was interesting. Also, a quick update on our tax sale. To date, our attorney that we hired to do the tax sale has recovered for us $32,199.30. As you know, we've got a number of properties that are in the tax sale that I shared with all of you last time. The process will continue forward, and that's a pretty good start. I also attended the annual cost meeting on October 16th. A big part of that was focused on affordable housing and affordable housing laws. It was interesting to hear from a number of our legislators at the Capitol, their thoughts on affordable housing. I think they're probably not always as beneficial to the town of South Windsor as probably you might think, but it was overall a good meeting to attend and hear that. I had the chance to go to Charter Revision last week. I talked with the Charter Revision Commission about the purchasing ordinance, or about purchasing processes and the possibility of a purchasing ordinance, as well as a number of other items that they're currently reviewing. It seems like they're making some pretty good headway there. I met today with Zach McCune from CCM. He's our new liaison to the Connecticut Council of Municipalities, and I'm pleased to report Zach is actually a South Windsor was a South Windsor resident, went through our school system, and is now working as a lobbyist in Hartford. So it was pretty cool to have the opportunity to sit down and talk with somebody who was born and bred here and kind of knew South Windsor. So that was great. Last item, just as the mayor took some of my wind out of my sails, I did want to mention this room's being used for early voting for the next 14 days, hence all the signs and other items in the room. And that is all I have. And unless anybody has some very pressing questions, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Stetson.
Councilor Pendleton?
Just a question for the town attorney and for Mr. Maniscalco, I suppose, if I may. It's nothing that you mentioned, but I had read that I think my question is there a possible litigation that we have with East Windsor at this time? None of us know about this, and they had it at one of their meetings for executive session in East Windsor.
You can answer.
None of that was mentioned to us, so I don't know if that's something that's coming up for us, or because they had an executive session on litigation with South Windsor.
There's no pending litigation with East Windsor.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing further.
All right, take it away, Mr. Stetson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and fellow esteemed. Vincent Stetson, Director of Public Works, and I'm going to take about 15 minutes here to talk about some projects and how residents can access these projects and a bunch of other really useful information about the town. All right, just adjust this a little bit here. All right, so welcome to the South Windsor Project Portal Storyboard. This is a overview of town projects and other project information and how to access them. This is a pretty neat little video here. It's kind of tough to drive. But, any day we have anywhere from half a dozen to probably 3 dozen projects going on, whether it's under the town's purview, the Board of Ed's purview, or outside services like utilities or the states. So it's a lot for residents to try to have to keep track of, and there's a lot of different ways for residents to find information about all the different projects. On any given day, a multitude of projects may be occurring in town, much like owning a home. There's an endless list of things to do and maintain. Schools need new roofs, bathrooms need updating, and this time of year, leaves must be raked. Just to go through the history here, we've got case in point, this was the King Street Aqueduct project that went on under the Connecticut DOT. We just had our salt shed repainted. The facilities group with Clay Major helped facilitate this work. As you guys know, we just had a splash pad put in, another great group effort. This here is an almost current picture of the UV disinfection project that's going on down at the pollution control plant. Just recently, if you guys remember, we had the HVAC updated here at the town hall. This is the new system that was put in, I believe, last year. Here's a photo of the cell phone tower that we put up a couple years ago at VMP. And this is the Main Street Bridge that we opened up about 3 years ago now. Seems like just yesterday. And just went and rebuilt the foyer with all new computer stations for residents to use. And again, constant projects going on. Another great example here is Mr. Manfree next to the Clark Street bypass valve. With multiple schools, town buildings, hundreds of miles of roads and sidewalks, and a complex sewer system, there's an immense amount of preparation and management that goes into these projects. Many of these town projects can take up to nearly a decade to complete, from the initial onset of the project application to the completion of the project, along with the administrative closeout paperwork. Not to get too far down into the details here, but just this pad that you're looking at for the crane, probably 100 hours of work just teasing out the details of that so that this crane could be set up on this bank and swung over with this large girder. But along with keeping the projects moving, the town also strives to keep its customers, the residents of South Windsor, informed about all the projects going on. And here's a profile of one of those beams being put into place. One way we do this is through the internet website platform, ClearGov. This is the front page of it that we found on the town website. And IT was gracious enough to help out by putting together a manager's minute video, which we're going to watch really quickly here, about how residents can access ClearGov.
Hi, I'm Drew Giles with the South Windsor Information Technology Department. At any given time, there are numerous major projects happening around town. Some, like the Governor's Highway reconstruction behind me, are highly visible to the public, while others, like the UV disinfection upgrade at the treatment plant, are not. To find information, you can visit the projects page of our ClearGov Transparency site by clicking the Town Projects button on the homepage or going to www.southwindsor-ct.gov/projects. The page loads listing all the projects in town with their locations identified on the map. By clicking on the drop-down menu, you can select one of the 3 categories of capital improvement, American Rescue Plan Act, or referendum bonding. Using the status drop-down menu, you can independently view the proposed, active, and completed projects for each category. Depending on your computer setup, the project status buttons may be shown on the screen instead of having to click the drop-down menu. By clicking on either the project listing on the left or the icon on the map, you can open the detailed information page, which includes project description, justification, and budget numbers. If you click on any of the subscribe to project updates buttons, you can enter your email and you'll be notified when the page is updated.
So that is one way of kind of a trident of ways that residents can find out about projects here in town. Another great source of information about projects throughout all the town departments is the monthly town manager's report. You can find this page on the town website, and there's a couple other ways to get to it that I'll show you here in a moment. But monthly, you will find all sorts of information in relation to town projects and programs, like updates on what street services department has been working on, or programmatic updates on human services, and I'm not sure why this isn't turning the page like it should be, but another useful conduit for more detailed information about town infrastructure projects is the monthly update with the engineering. And the monthly facilities maintenance report can be very informational for finding out details about town building projects. The Parks Department also uses the monthly town manager's report to provide a multitude of program and project updates. Nearly every department utilizes the town manager's report to share timely and informative updates to residents, like the finance department, IT department, and the town library or fire marshal's office. All are not shown here for brevity. Another way many of our departments communicate important updates to their residents is through social media, with the following departments having Facebook pages that residents may follow. The Public Works Department, Parks and Rec, the Police Department, the Senior Center, and our own town government page. These Facebook pages, set to the notification settings of your liking, may update you as soon as a post is made, providing you with important updates like this one. I got my glasses on, still can't really see it. They're going to be putting in 291 wrong way detection. Yeah. There it is. Another great way to find information or make service requests is through the town's free app called Connect South Windsor. This app I'm pretty proud of that the town came out with about 7 years ago. It's a free app, and you can also access it through the town website, which I'm showing you here, but you can also find it on the App Store. It works on your iOS device or Android device and is a portal to many important resources. Like here, you've got the town calendar, town council, and a request button that we'll get to in a moment. Within the app, you'll find a drop-down menu for things like town manager's office, contacts, the calendar, other important links to planning and zoning, refuse and collection. If there's a street light out, there's a drop-down menu for that, and all sorts of other helpful links, like tweets, snow programs, the animal shelter. This app is free and very powerful, and it allows residents to also make service requests to us. Any request that you can imagine, we have in there. I would like to think potholes, mailbox, illegal dumping, you got a dead raccoon. There's a drop-down menu. It's intuitive. If you have the app, it'll geolocate where you're at. You can take a picture if you like, and it creates a conduit between the resident and us, so the resident knows that we got the request, and you can be notified that we're working on it. Other issues is like trees, drainage issues. For pretty much any issue related to the roads, there's a request form. Having all the requests on one platform helps with workflow and management of the thousands of requests we receive yearly. We're averaging about 2,500 unique requests a year. Here is a visual heat map of all the pothole requests that we've had over the past 4 years. Having this information easily accessible ensures we don't lose residents' important requests and provides valuable data points for budget justifications. Here you can see the detail of the requests and the sheer number, 662 pothole requests over a 4-year period. It is important to note that Connect South Windsor has request portals for non-street service requests like billing or general questions, parks and grounds, the pollution control department, public buildings and facilities. They all have portals to make other requests to these other departments. If you have a question that you can't find an answer to, one of the best ways to get information is just to pick up the phone and reach out to us, because we always have somebody on hand to pick up the phone and direct you to the team member that's best suited to answer your questions. We also have a couple other resources that you guys may or may not be familiar with. Paving for Progress Plan, which is what we built the 2022 bond referendum on. That has just recently been updated with all the great work that we've been doing. Give it a minute to load up. I'll skip the middle of it, but as the map loads up here. This map shows the roads that were paved in 2023, roads that were paved in 2024, and what the plan is for years moving out. We also have one of these storyboards for sidewalks. Another great source of information. It has historical, empirical data about all the sidewalk work we've been doing over the decades. And if I click on Sidewalks of the Future, it gives you a rough plan of where we're looking to put sidewalks in the future. So there is a lot of different portals to find information about projects beyond just picking up the phone and calling us. And I'm sure you might have one or two specific questions about current projects that I'm more than happy to answer.
Any questions? Counselor Pendleton?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for bringing us up to speed with all of this. And don't dare say anything. And it's funny. I just realized I could charge my phones while I sit here because you came here. So thank you. This whole time, I didn't realize those. Silly, I know. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I saw you peeking. So what I like to say is what I appreciate the most is that I can share from our town departments on Facebook about the recycling that we do, from the police department's promotions or anything like that, or any new police officers, the human services, and sharing all that information on Facebook. I get so many likes from me sharing your posts because folks like my page or whatever, and they see you guys, instead of them going, you know, but they can go because it says where it comes from. And so thank you. But what's it called? The app. The app. How do we get to that app? How do folks do that?
So you can go to the App Store.
Okay.
And you plug in Connect South Windsor or South Windsor.
Connect South Windsor.
It'll pull right up, and
Okay.
it's free.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Counselor Carey?
Thank you very much. This is really interesting. I have one question. Is this also where we go to tell people about lights that are out, like street
Yeah, it
lights?
says it right here. Let me show you.
Oh, does it? Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll get the app and I'll find it out.
Yeah, so a little secret that folks might not know, we don't take care of the lights in town. So it's really just a conduit to get to Eversource, to get to their page, to notify them of the streetlight request. More often than not, when we receive a request like that, we let the resident know there's a portal for it, but we also go and enter one on their behalf because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we let them know, hey, you let your neighbors know that they can go and fill this out. If Eversource gets, you know, a dozen of these, it might be pushed up a little bit higher on the list and get done quicker.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. Also, I had no idea. I've had this app for a while. I didn't know how powerful it was. I get scared with data sometimes because it's just too much. But I appreciate that, and I think it's the more we can get citizens used to accessing it, probably the less phone calls we'll get because people can find the answers right there.
Yes.
Thanks very much for your
welcome.
work.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to kind of share a testimony about last year. I don't know if you remember, as a resident, in the morning, I was at the bus stop with my daughter, and a brand-new sidewalk never got backfilled, and there was quite a bit showing, and it was right as they would get on and off the bus. So I did put a request in, and actually, in the afternoon, when the bus came back, I realized that the town had already come and filled that in. So it does work. The requests do work. I didn't make any fancy calls from my town phone or anything. It was genuinely a request put in as a resident, and you guys got right on it. You know, I was expecting maybe throughout the week it might have got fixed, but you guys got out there right away, and obviously that's a safety concern, so I appreciated that a lot.
Yes, thank you. It's not a perfect system, but we do our best to try to get to all the requests in such a timely, in a very timely fashion. But when we're getting 2,500 of them a year, sometimes our level of service isn't quite to that. While I have you guys as a captive audience, I just wanted to thank the IT department, and all the other departments for helping me put this presentation together. You know, the Public Works Department isn't the only team that's putting out a lot of great work, and I thought it would be best to try to highlight all the groups and the ways that we can find out information about all of them rather than just focusing on the street services projects that we have ongoing.
You did a great job, and thanks for coming out. And like Councilor Pendleton said, it's good, you know, if we all get on there and share the link for the app and the websites that you talked about today. It'll just be really good to inform the residents about all these different portals and whatnot. So thank you.
You're welcome. And if the app isn't working, let us know that too, because it does break down sometimes. It's an imperfect tool in an imperfect world, but we do the best to make it work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 7, public input for items on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speakers shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone at this time who'd like to come forward for any item on the agenda? Going once. Any item on the agenda to speak at this time? Going twice. Seeing none, moving on to item 8, adoption of the minutes. Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to have the minutes of the previous meeting approved. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council approve the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of October 7th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion, item to add, changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Councilor King.
Madam Mayor, I'd like for it to be resolved that the South Windsor Town Council approve the minutes of the Quad Board meeting that was held on September 19th, 2024 as well.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any changes, additions, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to item 9, communications from liaison officers and boards directly responsible to the council. Wow, okay. Seeing none, moving on to item 10, reports from committees. Seeing none.
I have my light on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Councilor Curie.
I just wanted to mention that the Energy Committee has gotten the charger installed outside of the library. It's not hooked up yet. They're still working with the vendor to get the hookup completed, but the charger is there outside of the library.
And that's it? Sorry about that. Okay, that's it. Moving on to item 11, our consent agenda. We have no first reading, item A. Second reading, Councilor Carey.
Okay, motion to approve 11B1 as a second reading on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 11. Wait a minute. Okay, the numbers were mixed up. You were 11A. You're 11B.
What would you, which one? Where am I reading? Motion
First,
to
yeah,
approve
the first read, it's a
11A2?
first reading. They were in
Okay.
reverse order.
Motion to approve 11A2 and 11A3 for a first reading on the consent agenda? Is that what I'm to read? No. That's, motion to approve 11B1, we already did that as a second reading?
It would be B2 and B3, because they're actually the second.
I think these should be 11B. 11B2.
Motion to approve 11B2 and 11B3 as a second reading on the consent agenda.
Correct.
Is that correct now?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll reflect those in the minutes of changing 11A to 11B. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to 11A, middle miscellaneous, having none. 12, unfinished business, having none. Moving on to item 13, new business. Discussion item regarding specific direction to the Public Building Commission for the Park and Rec facility. This is for Councilor Balboni and Councilor Lewis. Since Councilor Balboni is not here, Councilor Lewis, do you want to take the lead before we start calling up our presenters?
Sure. In light of what we heard last council meeting, and as time has gone by, and I know I sent out a bunch of notes to folks, I just think we should have it. You can't hear me? You like? Yeah. Okay. I want to know what people think. We should have a discussion. We should have something clear and concise to say to the Public Building Commission. They want to get specific instructions from us, and I would agree with them that we've been kind of vague. I know we asked, when we had a presentation, we did ask for numbers to come back, which we haven't seen yet. But I think personally, from what I view of the data, is really what we need to do right now is give them specific instructions to find out what must be done, such as the roof, such as fire safety things, and how much that will cost, and let's go from there, as opposed to the big bang of what's a new building, what are all these phase 1, 2, 3s, what do we got to do now to set the stage for ADA compliance and deal with what we have now? Because what we have now is a Parks and Rec department that is working and is doing okay. So I just wanted to have a discussion here with the council members and find out what your thoughts are. That's why I asked for this to be on the agenda.
And plus, don't forget, we have to start putting our formulation of everything together. I think it'll come out from this meeting to Councilor Balboni, who is going to gather and help with
Right, I
the
sent him some,
resolution.
right, so I sent Rick some stuff as well, and Councilor Balboni, and hopefully, right. But we caucus, I'd like to hear what everyone thinks. I'd like to hear what Councilor Pendleton, what Councilor King think, and we don't get this opportunity very often, so that's what I'm hoping will happen. Thank you.
I think this will be a good time to call up our Director of Park and Rec, Molly Keys, to give us what her needs are.
All right, good evening, everyone. All right, you can hear me better now? Cool. Okay, so, based on the discussion last week, I want to thank you all for taking the time to really talk through what the Park and Recreation Department needs now, and also hopefully you can see what we need in the future. I've been asked to kind of provide an overview of what we currently need in terms of our department, but I also do want to press that the needs are going to be changing over the next 5 years, so we have to kind of be open to understanding that our numbers are going to be changing and the space we require is going to change as well. So hopefully we can develop a long-term plan that works best for the community. So I just want to start out by saying when I first started these conversations, it was about 3-ish years ago. At this point, we've been in Orchard Hill now since April of 2023, but we started the conversations back in 2022, I want to say. And we were thriving as a department coming out of COVID. Our numbers had all, gone back to pre-COVID numbers. The interest to participate in recreation was high within our community. So now that we're at Old Orchard Hill, I just wanted to give some current programming data. So in preschool, for example, we currently have 4 preschool classrooms, and we offer 4 8-week sessions, and we're serving about 1,000 preschoolers through that program. So we have the 4 rooms dedicated to that program. We do have a desire to potentially expand. Right now, we are not doing so just because of meeting space and some other factors that we have to remain flexible with our space. However, I think the big one that everyone's aware of is summer camp. So this past summer, we just served in our in-house camp only 2,173 kids. Every single room we did utilize, except for the top floor. We can't utilize that right now due to ADA compliance. We did reach max capacity. We're not able to accommodate any more kids off the wait list. We have explored options of using the other schools. However, administratively, to have camp directors in all different buildings, we already have contracted camps out there, but to have like in-house camps out there, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So that is our next resort if we have to. However, they just want to keep growing it, and they want it all to be on one site. The camp staff is excited about the program, but we are at capacity with that. And we do have contracted camps, so enrichment camps, sports camps, that we serve just over 550 youth, and that's all off-site because we can't fit them in our building. I will note that for summer camp, we are using the portables right now as well, and those are, you've been informed they're on their last leg. So the safety and the long-term portion of that building is probably less than 5 years, I would say. I mean, there's already significant issues with that structure, but we are having to use that right now in order to even keep at our normal numbers for summer camp. Our youth and parent-child programs during the summer, we do not run them because of the space constraints. However, during the school year, we have parent-child classes going on in the gym. We have adult fitness and wellness classes going on throughout the day. And through that, we're serving over 300 people approximately a month for those programs. And then our big one, which is our gym use. We receive calls, everyone receives calls, I'm sure, about our gym use. Our basketball program serves 1,500 youth each year. It's not just our facilities problem, I think it's a town problem, but we do not have enough gym space. And I don't think making the building ADA compliant is going to solve that either. To be frank, I think all of our gyms are rather small. However, from November to March, we really utilize every available school and our facility, which limits other the sports. So now we've had inquiries about tennis, badminton, pickleball, throwball. So those are some, issues that we have programmatically currently. Right now, if you look at after school time, like in all the other gyms, you can only use about 3 or 4 hours after school because, frankly, the kids can't practice too late. Too early, there's still stuff going on after school. So we really are limited in our gym space. And I'm not saying that a new facility would solve that problem because our community is growing, but I do think that that is a significant piece for us to consider. And then adult sport programs, we have to do offsite as well for all of them. So we have 32 volleyball teams and 25 adult basketball teams. But our gym is too small for adult sports other than open play. So we do host them all off-site as well. It's rather interesting, but adult sports have boomed the last, I would say, year even so. Our basketball league was in a decline, and now it's spiked back up. Pickleball spiked back up. Cornhole spiked back up. People want to be active and healthy, but we cannot currently host them in our gym. But those are just kind of some other, data points. And then I do also want to say that we host, organizations every evening in our facility for meetings. We also host safe sitter kind of classes for youth to be safe babysitters. We host CPR first aid, wellness programs in the evening, auxiliary boating classes. So just a variety of different things, cooking classes, art. So we aren't just sports and youth programs during the day. We do utilize those spaces at night. But to be clear, currently, I do know that there hasn't necessarily been an appetite for a big dollar sign number for a fancy brand new facility, and Tom and PBC had come up and stated different potential phases for our facility. And I do want to press at the importance of the safety and well-being, I think, for the kids and the adults that are participating in our building, and also the inclusivity piece. That's extremely important to us. So really focusing on that phase one being ADA, bathrooms that are ADA compliant, a roof is a big one, but also if we get rid of the portables, we have to figure out another solution in terms of space, because then we lose that programming space. And I also want to note that adding a elevator to get access to the second floor is great. However, then we do need more storage, because we are also full upstairs with storage space. So it is a multi-layer situation there, but ultimately we do need more space. I'm sorry that I'm not being concise in my thoughts. I'm just trying to promote out a little bit about what we need right now. But I will really say, so Orchard Hill is about 55,000 square feet. And in comparison, Wapping was about 44,000 square feet. So the proposed facility was about 78,000 square feet. And it sounds like a big jump, but I do think with the growing population, with the growing commands of our programs, it's going to be a need eventually. But for right now, if we wanted to focus on phase one and just make sure the safety of the building is compliant and up to date, I also do want to stress that I think the consideration of the plan of phase one being also just kind of tearing out the inner walls and making it more flexible for programming space, as I spoke about, so that way we could have multiple rooms that we could truly make our own in a rec center. So preschool rooms, dedicated entrance, that would be fantastic, but also spaces that we could use for camps, for meetings, for fitness programs that aren't so rigid like an old 70s, 80s classroom. So I do think Tom put that in his original plans, trying to show that piece as well for phase one. But I can answer any questions. And I can also say that I ultimately think that we truly want to advocate for a space that's going to be innovative and effective for our community. And we are conscious and understanding of the economic strain on the town and on our residents, but also understanding that the needs that they need for our recreational services. So we want a facility that will serve the needs with extra gym space, with new programming spaces, with a pool. However, we are understanding that it needs to be in phases, and ultimately we need to listen to the community and see what they feel about a recreation space.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for coming, Molly. I think probably the first time you and I ever met, we talked about this and just where it's come and how you've kind of bought into the phased approach, and realizing it's no mystery that it's getting very expensive to live in this town, and it's also no mystery that young families are flocking into this town because of the programs that you offer. So I think it's quite evident that you are doing a very good job with what you have. So to be able to focus on a phase that's necessary, and you said it yourself, that is a need, and the other two phases aren't necessarily a need at this time. I think that would really be the approach, to focus on the ADA compliance. I know the roof is basically done, which obviously you want to protect an asset in town. I'm all for that, and when the new phases come, I guess we just kind of see what happens over time. But I commend you for all that you do, having little ones myself, and we utilize a lot of what you do. I definitely believe that, getting this building up, it's a building we already own, it's constructed, whatever we can do to make it safe for the kids and allow you to do the best job you can, that's what I would definitely sign up for. So appreciate you coming out.
Thank you. Yeah, ultimately, it comes down to health and safety, inclusivity. We definitely do need, we need gym space. We need more gym space. We do need that phase eventually. I think it's going to be a huge struggle in the next 2 to 3 years with a ton of complaints, as it will be with any sort of programming that we try to do. However, I'm cognizant that we have to replace the roof. So I do know our needs, and I will firmly say that we will struggle if we don't get a new gym space sooner than later.
Another thing I want to ask you, if you move, are you storing stuff upstairs? Is that what you meant?
Correct,
So
yeah.
could you potentially use the portables for storage? for
No,
anything?
they're not in good condition for storage. And we have a lot of like our summer camp stuff is stored off season, temperature controlled. A lot of our event stuff, we try to order bulk for our staff uniforms, for example. That's also in temperature controlled storage, and the portables are not sufficient for that.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Carey?
Hi, Molly. Thank you very much. When you were building out what the needs were, did you benchmark with similar towns in Connecticut to see, what exactly they had?
Yeah, and I will say, for example, Mansfield is fairly similar to us, and they have a bigger space that's dedicated specifically to recreation. I'm very versed in what different towns are offering, and we offer a good amount of programs and events compared to a lot of other towns. However, their facilities are a little bit more advanced than ours, especially for those of similar size. I do implore anyone to go check out Mansfield Parks and Recreation. They do have a really nice dedicated space that does fit their community needs.
Thank you.
Counselor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The space that you're talking about, is that the one that's next to UConn's? Yes.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, it is a nice space. Used to live out there in the Coventry area.
Yep.
And yeah, it's magnificent out there. Son used to go out there all the time. So it is a very comparable space. I would suggest the same thing, that I think we need to get outside of our South Windsor bubble and say, okay, what are other towns doing to actually go there and see? Because these concepts don't necessarily do it justice when you see it live, especially when you're talking about, in my opinion, trying to have forward thinking, not today thinking, but 5 years down the road thinking. I think that before my time, before our time, there might have been a lot of decisions that were made with tomorrow thinking. And now we're coming back and with tomorrow money, as opposed to if we would have done maybe 5 years down the road thinking, and then we might have had some savings outside of, say, for example, if we were to move, we've already been told, as far as the portables and all those types of things, they're on their last leg. And if we just focus on, and I like to see what this phase one is, and I might just be missing it, and everything that it consumes. My primary concern is, and I think that Councilor Lewis might have said this in our last meeting, in terms of throwing good money after bad. If we say, okay, yeah, we might be thirsty and all we do is buy one water bottle, when we probably could have saved a lot more money by buying 45. So I think we need to really have that in our minds, especially as our town is growing. And what we know from past meetings, that unfortunately, when we didn't have enough programming, when we didn't have enough things that our town wanted with our youth, that you got the heck beat up out of you. And I know I don't want to go through that again. And I know you don't want to go through that again. So if we can keep that in mind, obviously we're bringing the public to get their thoughts. But at a certain point, if you can save money in the long run by just stretching ourselves a little bit, I think we'll be in a good spot. That all being said, ridiculous question, but I'm going to ask it nevertheless. Because you are hired and paid and you, as well as the town manager, as well as our director of schools, superintendent, have these types of conversations. Crystal ball type of thinking, but if money were no object, as a person that's paid to make these types of decisions and say, hey, I think based off of my experience day to day, because I'm not doing what you're doing every day of the week. But money aside and facilities aside, what would you like to see? No, we may not be able to do it, but again, you're doing this every day, not our residents who eventually will say we should do.
I do think that Tom had really sat down and listened to the department's vision and really just enhancing that space so it is a community hub for gathering, right? So it's a place that adults, kids, seniors in our community, they come as like a third spot. It's not work, it's not home. They come to exercise, to socialize, they come to learn new things. And I would really like to see just an enhanced space where we can have flexible programming, where we can have a dedicated fitness space, and ultimately our preschool program having that separate entrance for safety, for pickup and drop off, with a safe playground space for them to play on, and a dedicated gym space. I think that's extremely needed. A pool is a hot topic either way because pools are expensive, but I do think that there is a benefit to having a pool in the community. It doesn't need to be this fancy pool that has a water slide or a splash pad. It's all those fun things that people see originally and they might say, hey, I really want this. But I think the core need of the community long term would be to have an indoor pool space. And I think it's all needed for this community. I think if we talk to the residents, a lot of them would say the same thing. I do think money scares them. But if we could have honest conversations about what do you need and what do you see out of Parks and Rec, like what are the essential services, what do you want from us, I think it's really important to have that conversation because I do know a lot of people would say similar.
Madam Mayor, if I could follow up?
Sure.
So after our last meeting, I actually went out there and I walked the field and everything. And what I'm conscious of, even based off of Ms. Doherty's last comments, were if we decided to do what was suggested in our last meeting, where would we put the baseball field? What would we do with the new Orchard Hill during all of this construction? Is that feasible? Like, even to the point, I apologize, even to the point of the parking lot, like I literally walked it and I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't, I can't, maybe I can't see it because it's not what I do for a living. But is it even feasible in the sense of, okay, now we're gonna do all this construction, but we need to move it out, and so now we need to move the baseball field, but then where does the baseball field go? And I am cognizant of Ms. Doherty's last points during the meeting where, okay, well, we can use the lot between Timothy Edwards and Orchard Hill. No, we can't. I went out there, I walked it, there was actually multiple events going on, little kids running around, and I was like, okay, these parking lots are filled. How are we going to have that plus the events that you just talked about? And so while I appreciate things in writing, I also want to be in reality and say, okay, if we tried to do this, how would this exactly work? Even if you're talking about in phases, that first phase, I see new road, and I'm trying to figure out how would that exactly work. So again, if you've had those conversations, I would love to get your insight because it kind of goes beyond, hey, we can just destroy Orchard Hill and everything will be okay.
We've had preliminary discussions on it, very, very basic. And it's been said to be feasible, but I am not going to speak really on it because I'm not fully versed and I don't want to spread misinformation on that piece.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Pendleton?
Thank you. Thank you, Molly, for coming and presenting to this council that hasn't heard you yet. I don't believe that this evening is the first night, correct, that you've presented to this council?
Yeah, actually, I believe
Thank
so,
you.
yep.
Thank you. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to see you here, is because it'd be tough for us to make a decision on anything without hearing from the director of the Park and Recs Department. I have to honestly sit here and say that, forgive me, excuse me, I'm heartbroken. I'm going to be honest, I'm very heartbroken that your department is where you're at and what you have to go through. I'm heartbroken for our community. I'm heartbroken for our department. I'm heartbroken for our lack of foreseeable future on where we were heading and what we were doing with the Park and Rec Department. That was brought up for so many years ago. And we had very little momentum. We are where we are. We have to heal those heartbroken wounds, I suppose, and let's go for what we can go for. However, with listening to everything and looking at the programming or at the building site plan and everything, and listening to your programming needs, and I'm sure you expressed that to the PBC, correct?
We've chatted about our programming needs, and then I did sit down with Tom and talk further exactly what our needs are currently and what the potential programming spaces could look like. Yes.
Well, that was one of my questions, because
Yes.
you said 5 years. So where we are now to where we're going to be in 5 years, what is that? I wrote future needs. So what is that, please?
Yeah, I mean, the town's growing, everyone knows that, the residents, and it seems to be families mainly coming in. So our needs are only going to grow for preschool, before and after school, for our fitness programs, for our camps, gym space. So we ideally need to grow with them, and we have to plan and think a little bit ahead about how we can make spaces that can be flexible and a little bit bigger to adapt to those needs. Because right now, again, we're at max capacity, and that's the reality of it. And I don't foresee it getting any better. And I just want to make sure, and I think it's important to note that all the departments feel the same way. We always want to make sure that we have the right amount of resources and services available for the community. We're here to better the community, to work with all the residents. So, you know, we try to think ahead of time to say, like, okay, here's what our needs are going to be. I know that we're going to need more gym space this year. Next year, it's already a headache. And we just want to make sure people are happy and healthy. And ultimately, we can't do anything without the space. And that's the reality.
Well, no, that goes in, excuse me, but that goes in with what Ms. Doherty had to say, that this is going to last for 20 years, and you're talking about the needs of the 5 years. Just the growth of the 5 years is going to be impactful. I would like to see, and I'm going to be quite honest, I'd like to see us have a prize-winning Park and Rec Department, like we have a prize-winning senior center, or senior grouping and human services over there, and folks that utilize our senior programming from other towns. They come in from other towns because it's so fantastic there. I know you're fantastic. I know your department is fantastic. It's busting at the seams because it's excellent. And you made it on the 30 Below 30 magazine or something like that, right?
I did, yes, correct.
So, proud of you. Thank you. So with all that said, you're at 55,000 square feet now, and your proposed 78,000 square feet. That's not even doubling what our present needs are for square footage. And you're also talking about having flexible space to use it the way that you feel that you should be able to use it. And you've expressed this to the PBC and your needs with that?
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the presentation, we chatted a little bit about the facility itself and what it could potentially look like. And the way the building is designed, if you were to renovate and just knock down walls, you have the ability to kind of transform and make the spaces flexible. Because right now they're classrooms, right?
Right.
And we've done a great job internally renovating the preschool classrooms. My staff are incredibly talented. But they're still, I mean, they're classrooms, right? And recreation as a whole is evolving, and community needs are evolving, interests are different. Like, for example, this year we're trying out an esports program. So to get a flexible space, for example, an open recreation space, you could have esports programming at one part of the day. You could do media literacy classes at other parts of the day, which is also offered in other recreation spaces throughout the country. You could also have that space be open for the robotics club to come practice, because they always ask to come practice. So it's just different flexible spaces that can grow with the community, right?
Okay. Thank you. I like that. I like how you have your out-of-the-box thinking and using the space that you have. A couple other things, just bear with me as I go down my notes here. The number one thing that I heard from you is the health, safety, ADA. The portables are not good. So I'm hearing that loud and clear. And health, safety, and welfare, I believe, is what capital improvement and for our community is. So that sticks in my head, in right rock center there. So the other thing that I was going to ask you is you had mentioned with when you're full and using your programming needs, I believe maybe it's for the summer camps, and you said you have to go to different places, or maybe for the gym. You said you'd have to go to other schools, but they're using the schools, or that would be a problem for the schools. Can you not use a community center?
No, I mean, Andrea has a ton of programming throughout the day, every single day, and they do maximize their use of their space as well. So that's why we focus on going to the schools, and the schools work with us the best that they can. Like during the summer, for example, they're doing a lot of like cleaning or construction projects, so we kind of work around them on what they can allow us to do for contracted programs. But for example, our Food Explorers program, they wanted to originally use our kitchen when we moved in to Orchard Hill, and we've tried a few times to do it, but it's not conducive to their programming, and they've expressed interest in wanting to continue the kids camps and the adult, like they want to do adult cooking classes. However, they were like, well, we want to use the middle school because that's actually, we can actually program in there, we can safely operate in there. So if we're not able to use the middle school, for example, for all the sessions or times because of, construction or whatever, then we are going to lose that program for certain weeks. And again, the school, I will never, diss any of the relationships that we have. They work really well with us to try to make sure that we can utilize the space, but it is difficult. I mean, they have their priorities, they have their time windows.
So I'm just gonna think out of the box here, and because my mind has been thinking about this a lot. Please don't put me in front of the firing squad community or the town staff. Excuse me. Has it ever been thought of to swap the senior center with the Park and Rec department? And you're smiling, so apparently someone had conversation about this.
I don't know if anyone had conversation, but I'm not sure that it would be
Well, I mean,
wildly
just to think
loved.
about it, to swap those two departments in those two different buildings, seeing that they use the rooms, and Andrea's programming in the rooms, and that's what she could use there as the rooms at the school, but your space needs to be different, a different layout, but to move the Park and Rec department back to the community center and add on to the community center with a pool and a basketball court, and then move human services over to Old Orchard Hill, because the community center building is actually a community center. The senior center or human services department is housed within the community center. So if they had their own building and that department was in that building, and the Park and Rec department was in the community center, just swapping the two. That's one thought. I said, don't shoot me in front of a firing squad, it's just some thoughts. The other one is hearing and knowing where our schools are going, and hearing and knowing where our elementary schools are at right now presently, and busting at the seams. We're gonna have a problem with our middle school. We've heard that from the Board of Education. We've heard about the renovation from the Board of Education, that they had to build 3 or 4 sixth grade classrooms in the middle of the hallway, and they're giving up their meeting room to make more classrooms. Would it be feasible, and I'm not the numbers person, to build a new middle school and to give the Park and Rec department to the middle school, to Timothy Edwards, to house them in Timothy Edwards, and just build a pool off the back of there? It's another thought. I said, don't shoot me, okay? Just saying, thinking out of the box. There's a lot of options. I hear you chuckling over there. There's a lot of options, but to swap those two departments, which would make sense to me, to have the Park and Rec department with a pool across from the high school, and to have fields there for the children to use, and to have the outdoor space that you probably could utilize as a Park and Rec person, and move the Human Services Department over to Old Orchard Hill seems to make sense to me, but I'm not the expert in the field. So those are two I just had to get off my chest there for a second. The other one is, I'm sorry, I just have a lot of notes here from her speaking that I have to write down. We also had, years ago, a study done in 2000, I believe. It was a study for the town, and then we've had studies since then, correct?
Correct.
And this community has responded about what they would like to see at the Park and Rec Department.
Yes.
Now, did you bring those wishes to the PBC when you went and spoke with them? On that survey results that you had?
So the original meeting prior to the PBC, so we had a Park and Rec Facility Committee. We had talked briefly about some of those survey results in the master plan within that committee. The master plan we've talked within the Park and Rec Commission to update it because we've actually done a significant amount on that master plan based on the community's results on that survey. The one big piece, though, there was, additional gym space, additional fields, and indoor pool. Were like the biggest things that we have not accomplished yet on the master plan.
Now, those are the three departments that I was just going to mention to you, the Park and Rec Commission, the master plan, as you're mentioning, and I think you said one more or something, the facilities, that's right. So with all of those three said, and they've updated the master plan on the Park and Rec, have they not?
So they did as I started, and then since we have pretty much checked off a majority of the projects on it. So we are in the very start of the process of really analyzing on how we can update that master plan. So going out and using all of our surveys from our programs to really start to bolster up and update the project lists and update the survey or the community needs based on the surveys.
Shouldn't just me thinking, shouldn't the results of the updated master plan be presented to PBC and say, this is what our community would like to see or needs, or from the surveys, prior to us delving into this, maybe look at what the master plan is so that way it's covered by the Park and Rec Department through your structure, wherever you're located, by the PBC. They can consider everything that the town wants and needs. Shouldn't we compile all that first and then present it to PBC?
I do believe that we drive pretty much all of our operations based on the master plan. However, presenting currently our master plan to the PBC when I feel as though we're already behind, right? Like our department's ahead of the time. We need to update that master plan to present that old one is going to be outdated. That is my main concern because we are actively trying to figure out how we can update that to really reflect the current community needs. So if I read the data results that I think it was like between 2015 and 2019, everything was done, that's going to be different than 2020 to 2024, which is why we're starting to, again, compile those surveys. But it wouldn't be an official document to then present to the PBC. It would just be based on like our survey results within our department, which I'm happy to always share with anyone.
Well, I think that's critical important. You have the survey results, you have the questionnaire results.
Yep.
You have, and I'm sure that's going to be incorporated into the master plan. They're not going to look at it and say, no, we're not going to consider that.
Yes, correct.
So that can be presented to PBC with what the community would like to see. And this is what I want to avoid. Spending $1 bazillion on a structure that is old, outdated, bad location, to come to find out that it does not meet our town needs come 5 years down the road. I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste the money on taking a 60s, 70s building in a bad location, can't put a field there, can't hit a ball because you got cars coming down the road, there's no parking. I'm very concerned about putting anything out to referendum that is not going to meet the programming needs or the department's needs coming down the road 5 years to 20 years.
Yeah, and I do agree. I think that the community needs to have some public input, some engagement, whether that's engagement sessions. We did try to do that internally through Parks and Rec with the commission last spring. we didn't get a ton of community engagement, so I think if the council or the PBC want to, work with our department to then have us do further community engagement events, put out further surveys that are targeted more towards the future of what the needs are or what do they want to see, we'd love to do that.
And I think it's important too that you pointed out the growth of South Windsor just in the last 4 or 5 years. When the first time that, even from 2020, the survey went out, something like that, just in those 4 years timeframe. So I'm glad you covered the survey and the master plan that was on there too. I think that's everything. I've covered everything.
I hope so, Councilor Pendleton.
I'm sorry, these are just all my notes from her talking.
I know, because Councilor Lewis has been patiently waiting.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It was just from Molly speaking and giving us all this, I was, sorry. Thank you for coming here. Thank you, appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilor Pendleton. Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Pendleton. As you may remember, though, the master plan was presented to the last council and approved and presented to the whole town. So PBC has had it. So all this stuff has happened before. We're doing a lot of retreading of stuff we've done before, and years are going by and we're not making any decisions. I hear, with Councilor Pendleton, I hear you. Safety is important. The growing exponential growth is important. I would love to spend all the money in the world and have, as Councilor Pendleton said, a Class A prize-winning facility. What we need is we need to hear from the citizens of the town to say, are you willing to pony up? Because we could go to referendum, but referendums cost money, they take time. We need to hear from the town. The surveys taken that Parks and Rec has done are almost illegitimate because there are a couple hundred people in a town of 27,000 people that have responded, and we can't make decisions because of a couple people, right? We need to hear from the whole town. And of course, the people who participate in the surveys are Parks and Rec people. So they want all these programs, and we know that. But with the previous director, Ray Favreau, he did survey after survey after survey, and we still got, well, we got 143 results. We can't make major decisions based on that data, right? It's just not fair. So what we need, I plead the town to contact us. We need to, things are more expensive, and they're getting more and more expensive every day. Councilor King is right. We should build a facility that is not going to be outdated the day we break ground on it. So we need to plan ahead. We need to spend smarter money. It's crazy. I agree to be safe. Let's take care of the roof and then what we got to take care of now. But $1, $2 million, $3 million, why spend that if we're going to throw it away? It doesn't make sense. And so we're kind of, as a council, we're backed into a corner to make a decision soon and give direction to other town entities in a concise manner when we don't know what the appetite for the town really is, except for that we were asked and we were elected on the basis of, don't you make those taxes go up? Guess what? They're going up. We have no choice. I'm sorry for the bad news. Everything costs more today. Go to the gas pump. I can't believe it's getting over $3 a gallon. It's important that we make good quality decisions, and right now we need to get a single-minded direction as opposed to your ideas are great, it's great to free-float ideas, but we don't need a bunch of ideas. We need one idea to move forward, and we need to decide on that. And that's up to us, and that's the purpose of the discussion, to get us on the same page so we can make decisions on the basis of the town. And so we need to not squirrel. We need to not chase the squirrels. We need to stay focused on what we need to do. And if we need to Band-Aid it for the meantime for safety and so that we keep ourselves liably out of trouble, then that's what we got to do, and we got to bite that bullet. But we really need to hear from the town of, do they want these programs? Do they want a good facility? Do they want something that they're going to go out of the way to drive visitors over by, check out our park center? We got to pay for it. We need to hear from the town. We need to hear from the town as what their appetite is. It doesn't make sense for us to pipe dream and go to referendum if it's going to vote down, because that's also costing money.
I do believe that you need to, again, hold engagement sessions, figure out how to hear from a bigger group of residents. Traditionally, surveys that are done at events, you get a couple hundred people at events. Like we only survey currently all of our program participants because we also hold heavy value in ensuring high quality programs, right? So that's the purpose of our surveys. But I do think, I'm not sure exactly what method or direction that the town council would like to go in terms of surveys and community engagement, but I do think having that open conversation and door with residents that are for and not for the facility and really weighing out the pros and cons, it's beneficial.
Well, I just wanted to thank you. I've worked with you since you came, and you're doing a great job. And oftentimes I go to the farmer's market and I quiz your employees. How's it going? And people are excited about what's going on with Parks and Rec. So that's good that your staff is excited and that you're able to fully staff. That's good. Do we have the chair of the PBC here that maybe he could share some?
Yes, we do.
That might be a good idea.
Mr. Montana?
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Good evening. It's Matthew Montana, Chairperson of Public Building Commission. Sure.
Yeah, you're taller.
What can I do for you? There's a lot of challenges that we've had. The big question is, Steve and I throw it out there to you, where you put out, money's no object? Sure, sounds great. We'll go build an $80 million building. But we've had it looked at by 2 different firms already to go do it at 2 different facilities. We have those numbers. We've shared them with town council. Right now, but what we were told in a direction in November is that we need to conserve money. We can't raise taxes. So we've been trying the best way possible to reuse the existing facility. We understand that we're putting Band-Aids on all that stuff. Is it the best possible solution 15, 20 years down the road? I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know. I mean, obviously brand new versus putting Band-Aids on existing buildings. You compare them, it's a no-brainer. You want new. I just don't know what town council, what your appetite is. Do you want us to go after designing, giving a facility for a brand new $80 million? I don't know. And we've been looking for kind of a direction back from town council of what would you like us to do? Do you want us to go follow suit of reusing the existing facility where we went through? There are challenges, Stephen, as you pointed out, with the plan because of things that are happening. Tom, our architect that we had hired, came up with a great plan. Everything does fit there. And we, as a PBC, we're taking into consideration all the sporting events that you have at the middle school and kind of creating them a whole complex. That there are a lot of sporting events that they have at the middle school that they don't have fields for. They have a track. They have a track team, they don't have a track. So we're trying to incorporate all sorts of stuff into a master plan there so that everything works together. That it's a lot of money though. Tom has shared with the PBC at our last meeting a lot of numbers going through as it was requested from town council at our last meeting. How much does it cost? And putting in a list of priorities. How much does the roof cost? How much of this? We have those numbers now. It's a lot of money though. So for a total, you're probably in the ballpark 16 to 18 million dollars getting them back up to speed in that existing facility. That's putting new roofs on, the mechanical system, redoing the windows, the ADA upgrades. There's a lot of things that were shared with us. There's a lot of numbers, and it can be done over time. But we're looking for direction from the town council. Which way do you want us to go? Are we keeping them in this facility, or does the town have an appetite for saying we want a brand new facility at another location? We can't answer that.
Thank you. I think, if I may, I think what we'd like or what we need is right now the immediate needs, what's the cost on that, and then follow up that. But this is what we recommend. This is how much it's going to take care of what you guys got to do to stay legally, whatever, to be safe, to take care of this. This is the baseline, the base minimum, which you can do. But we'd recommend from our discussions, from our meetings, from our talkings with architects. But this is what we recommend. I think that's what we need. Does that make sense?
And that recommendation, is that with whatever the total amount, doesn't matter?
Yeah.
Because we keep hearing mixed things where we can't raise taxes, we're trying to save money. So we were told in having meetings with the town manager and the deputy mayor and mayor, going through and saying, reuse the existing facility, it's the best economical means for the town. If that's off the table, or we'll get them going for a couple of years and build a brand-new facility, it's two different entities. We just need to know how much the town is willing to spend.
However much the town will give us to spend, we'll spend. I mean, what can you do? We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball either, so that's why we need to hear from the town. But what we do need is we need that building to be safe, number one. We need that building to be safe. So we got to take care of what we got to take care of, because that's the responsible thing to do. And then we need advice and recommendations of how we move forward to getting where we want to go with some intelligent thinking and planning.
Councilor Carey?
So some of these questions are for Molly.
What? Those questions are what? Oh, I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
Thanks. Thank you. So one of my questions is, for our camps, preschool, and our programs, are we only enrolling South Windsor students, or are we enrolling children from other towns?
So all of our in-house camps are South Windsor residents only, for a variety of reasons, obviously to serve the community first, but also like health and safety portions as well. So when you're American Camp Association accredited, we have certain health guidelines, and through that we decided, okay, we're gonna serve our community first and make it residents only. If we tried to expand it to other communities, yeah.
So is that true for your preschool and other
So our
programs?
preschool, we leave it open for residents only, and if a class does not fill, then we do open it to non-residents. But I would say about 90% are all residents. Sometimes the non-residents are like a grandparent lives in town and they want to take their grandchild to preschool, but their grandchild does not live in town.
Okay. And then do we have a similar ratio for other recreation programs?
So majority of our programs are residents only.
Okay. And then is there a link or something you could send us or to get to your master plan?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I can have that forwarded. It's also available on the town website under Park and Recreation Commission. We do have a link to our master plan on there as well.
Okay. And then, Toby, kind of addressing what you were saying, I really think that, when we talk about building a new facility, and I don't disagree with you, a new facility might sometimes be more cost effective. I think that we have to look at the town as a whole. I find, and this is my perception, and if you all want to get annoyed about it, I apologize. I find that we are very siloed, right? Instead of, we need to look at this as, not just what's Park and Rec need, but what do schools need? One of the things that I have seen, because I have lived in many different towns over my life, is that oftentimes gymnasiums are attached to schools. One of the reasons is because you can get some compensation from the state when you're expanding schools that you can't necessarily get for Parks and Rec. I don't know if you've looked at grant programs for Park and Rec facility?
Yeah, so we look into grants, for fields, for the facility. I do find from my discussions at the national level, oftentimes people explore like the public-private partnerships or partnerships with larger companies instead of grant opportunities, because only certain communities qualify for facility grants.
Okay, but I do think as a town, we have to be cognizant of our taxes. We just had a quad board meeting where we told people we were going to raise taxes by what looks like a minimum of 7% next year. And people are screaming about the taxes. So I think that we built 4 brand new elementary schools. That was a great idea. We needed to do it, but we just need to be a little bit careful. I'm not saying we shouldn't do what we need to do. But I also think that, I don't know, when you're gonna do something, you kind of need to plan, like, I'm gonna do this year. So we're gonna do what we need to do to make TE work for the expanded students. We're gonna do what we need to do to make South Windsor High School work for the expanded students. We're gonna see what we can need to do to keep the Parks and Rec running while we're dealing with this, inflation of students. The size of the town, actually, while enrollment has increased, I don't believe we have had as much increase in residents. Like, our residents and our enrollment, it has not expanded at the same rate. Okay, part of that is turnover of older people, like myself, who, are now don't have children in their schools. But we have about, I believe, the POCD had us at 28,000 residents. So, and the POCD was just done. And that is one thing, you might want to start with the POCD. They did a lot of surveying and questions around Parks and Rec. So rather than beginning like a new survey, you might want to pull some of that. I know that Michelle Leip has all the details.
Yep. Yeah, and we did have discussions about, some potential, back when they were planning that, some of the survey questions that could go hand in hand to also benefit us for our future planning. So we have analyzed that data.
And I would like to see us, I think, I'm going to mess it up, Mansfield, right? Was that the town? I think that's a great example, but I would really like to see us benchmark, or nothing fancy, but, I was doing some of this when we were getting ready for the quad board meeting. What are other communities our size doing? And just like Dr. Carter does with the DRG, right? And let's look at some comparisons, what's out there. People can build any size footage. It's kind of like a kitchen, okay? When you have a little kitchen, you fill it up. If you double the size of your kitchen, you know what? You fill those cabinets up too. So I think we have to figure out what is necessary. And then also we need to leverage our schools. Think about, does it make more sense to put a gymnasium on a school and then you use it as opposed to putting it as a standalone facility? So just a thought.
Councilor Pendleton, we have Mr. Arcari here too. Do we want to hear what his number
I
is?
know, that's where I was going next. That's, if I may. Mr. Montana, I'd like to address, please, sir. Yes, thank you. I just want to thank you for being here this evening and answering our questions and coming back with some numbers. And I know the task at hand is not easy, and thank you for the time that you've committed already with the PBC Commission and listening. Take everything into consideration, the POCD, the master plan, the Park and Rec Commission, the feasibility study, all of that. There's a lot to encompass. And I know at our last, not this last meeting, but the one prior to that, Mr. Arcari offered to come back with numbers, and that's where I was just going to go with that, if we could,
Yeah,
if
that would be
you wouldn't
great.
mind. Sure. And if there's a document that maybe you have with each item listed and what it would cost, if we could get a copy of that for the council to give Kathy, and then she can go ahead and send it to us? Because we don't have that yet. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Arcari.
Thanks. Good evening. Tom Arcari with QA&M Architecture, Scott Swamp Road, Farmington, Connecticut. Just when I thought I was going to get away without having to talk. No, it's great. I heard all the conversation tonight. I'd just like to give you some quick feedback on what's been done today. So the feasibility study that was put together, through us for the PBC and Parks and Rec Department actually was very successful. It did a good job. It demonstrated that the Old Orchard Hill School is a viable site for your long-term community center needs. That being, the existing building could be recaptured. It's a very sustainable approach. That building can house all of her program needs that are sized for that space. Multifunction rooms, exercise rooms, classrooms, daycare and programming, outdoor play space. The site is very successful because it can be used for intergenerational planning and youth service planning because the two schools are right on the site, and all of the exterior athletic fields are there. So reuse of the building makes good sense. There are some challenges because the building currently has facilities department in it. But from a professional standpoint, reinvestment in that school makes some sense when you're thinking about using an asset that you already own in the community. Additionally, that plan is structured in such a way that you could phase in the addition of a gymnasium or an auditorium in the future as funding allowed for that. So the site is a good site. It makes sense for future purposes. Now, I heard another interesting opportunity tonight from Ms. Pendleton about the Thames School. I don't know anything about the senior center or your existing community center, but if the town needs a new middle school and then there's a question about what to do with the old middle school, which would be much larger and would have gym facilities, well, then that's a strategic exploration the town should maybe possibly consider, particularly because a new middle school will also get the benefit of financial aid from the state, depending on its viability. I don't know about that. So that is an interesting idea. The swap plan, I don't know. I'll let someone else put it in front of the shooting gallery there. But so there are other strategic options. But I do believe that the old Orchard Hill School, that process, the ability to put Parks and Rec there is very viable, would make financial sense. Obviously, renovating an existing building for 55,000 square feet of her program needs makes sense. And then for the other ones, which you can't get in there, a new gym or a new natatorium long-term, you would build those new wherever you were going. So it makes good sense. And you have a lot of asset there. I've heard a lot of talk about life safety and code and sort of envelope needs. There are some dire needs that need to be met at that facility. I don't know if dire is the best word, but there are some life safety and code needs. I'm working with building department. We've already identified and the fire marshal that the building needs a fully addressable fire alarm system. The building does not have code compliant egress from the second floor of that building. We are aware of the elevator issue, but the building needs a second exit from the second floor of the building. Currently, the existing users only have access to one code compliant exit. So you have to put a stair tower in the building somehow at some point in the near future to address this issue. At that point, it makes sense to put an elevator in and just deal with your accessibility issues. Those are really primary issues that have to be dealt with. The roof replacement should be done no matter what to protect your asset. If you're going to make any investment in that building, you should replace the roof. ADA upgrades within the building should be done if you're going to continue to use the building so that, again, the whole building becomes compliant. There are some other needs which I consider to be further down the list of demands, like mechanical system replacement. Your mechanical system is fair to poor, probably has 5 years of life left. I mean, you can squeeze some life out of it, but you're gonna have to replace it if you're gonna make investments in that building. You should do so in the coming future. Ceiling and lighting replacements go along with that. If you have to do mechanical replacements, you usually have to do ceiling replacements, and LED replacements is cost effective. Further down the list, which frankly I consider a higher priority, I would do it right away, but would be removable, the portables. The portables are just a pending liability. They are quickly deteriorating. There are signs of water infiltration throughout the portables. The roofs are in bad shape. I would just remove those. But you could continue to function in the building and just close off the portables and essentially let them continue to degrade if the money's not available, but removing them makes a lot of sense. So I did put a list of prioritized work together for this committee to review. It starts from what I consider to be the highest priority to the lowest priority. They're all real needs the building has to have, but maybe the bottom few could be squeezed out if you're trying to pinch a couple pennies here and there. I understand that. I live in a community just like yours as well, so there are realities that we face. So I'll leave that within the center, then you guys can review it afterwards. But if you have some questions about the process, I'm here, so.
Well, I have a question. You mentioned 5 years possible for the mechanical system. What would you rate the roof?
I think the roof is less than 5 years. There's already signs of water infiltration. Have you walked on the roof? If you've walked the roof and you look at it, then you'll be like, oh, I get it. It's in pretty bad shape. It's at the end of its life. And maybe you'll get a few years out of it, but I don't think so.
So you're really thinking the roof is number one? And then possibly
well, the code and life safety issues, you can argue, are really number one. You need to get people out of the building first. They kind of go hand in hand. If you're going to do any work on the building, you should put the roof.
Okay.
You know, you package it together. There are other strategies, and the Public Building Commission is actually very educated. They would also advise you in terms of strategies. So when you have to do work, it makes sense to lump the work together because you get better value if you do it just bits and pieces. So the way we've estimated the project is as if each of these projects were standalone projects. So a fire alarm system, you know, $400,000 for the whole building, fully addressable. But if you put that together with a number of projects and you have a general contractor and the scope grows, now you can buy it out a little more competitively. So strategically, you're going to want to look at a chunk of these things and try and do as much as you can because you'll get more value.
So this list is what Mr. Montana mentioned, 16 to 18 million?
That's correct.
And you said it's a viable site, so you're saying that the building is a good old building. I mean, it's really structurally sound and solid.
The structure of the building is actually in very good shape. It's steel frame, it's CMU backup, and that's concrete blocks, I'm sorry. The building's a good building. I mean, doesn't need new windows, yep. Doesn't need a new mechanical system, yes. But if you invest in that building, you're gonna pay half of what it would cost to build a new building. So if you look at a 55,000 square foot building and current construction costs for a building of this nature, realistically, you're talking about a building replacement cost, not including demolition, at about $700 a square foot is about $36 million to do a building new. So if you can make this 55,000 square feet basically new for $18 million, that's a good investment for the community, as opposed to having to build, you know, replicate that square footage someplace else. Now, if you take another building, let's say you move Parks and Rec into another building, your renovation costs in today's marketplace are still going to be about the same depending on the condition of the building. We're actually finding, just as a placeholder, we're finding that construction costs for brand new school assemblies are, you know, close to $1,000 a square foot. So just doing, you know, office square footage or multifunction square footage, we're seeing it at around $600 to $700 a square foot. The construction market has exploded. I know you've recently built some new projects in the last 5 years, but you take a look at it again today, and I mean, well, you've seen the price of the gas, right? You've been to the supermarket. Well, building costs are 40% higher too. It's crazy.
Counselor Pendleton?
Just one quick question, just a numbers question. 16 million to 20 million to ADA compliant phase one? Is that what you're saying?
So basically,
Because
Yep.
and forgive me, let me finish my question. And then I just heard that to build a new building is 36 million?
Approximately, yes.
I thought it was close to 80 million. Like,
No, no,
there's
no,
numbers everywhere.
Okay,
Just help
so
me out.
Let me clarify that.
Please.
Because there's numbers everywhere. So the Parks and Rec program has really 3 pieces, and we've broken our concept into 3 phases, but the first piece is renovation, restoration of the existing 55,000 square feet, which would meet essentially half of their program needs, half of their master program needs. Those are administrative offices, meeting rooms, exercise classrooms, dance classrooms, daycare programming. All of that happens in relatively small spaces which exist within the footprint of the existing school. The other half of the Parks and Rec program or master plan essentially includes the gym, the natatorium, and locker rooms that support it. The gym and natatorium, the natatorium's roughly 20,000 square feet for simple math. Maybe it's 19 or 18, but it's about 20,000 square feet. A new gym that is, let's say, a high school sized gym is about 15,000 square feet. And then the locker rooms that support it can be maybe 5,000 to 8,000 square feet. So if in simple numbers you look at a new gym and natatorium are about 40,000 square feet, and the Parks and Rec programming, the other half of it is about 40,000 square feet. That's how you get to the total 80,000 square foot number, right? So if you built a brand new 80,000 square foot building, everything included, that cost is probably somewhere between $60 and $80 million. But what we're saying is renovate the existing building for 20 for round numbers, and then build a new natatorium and gym for 40. Your total all-in cost there is 60 versus 80. But it's even more complicated than that, because what you've seen is that in the last 5 years, since the last time you did a project, the cost of doing anything has basically doubled. So every moment that we think about this and stew on it, we come up with greater ideas, and we're going to flip-flop and move this here and that there, everything's getting even more expensive. So part of the advantage to renovating Old Orchard Hill School is that you have a facility, you have a good location, and you can renovate an existing asset for 50 cents on the dollar and make that portion of their program new. So you could do that pretty quickly, relatively quickly, in sort of communal time frame terms, but you could do that quickly and accommodate half of her master plan. The other program elements, the gym or the natatorium, you're going to build those new, essentially, especially in natatorium, as you don't have one. You would build that new wherever you built it down the road. So the costs for that are dollars for dollars. I'm just saying that renovating the existing building, which is an asset you have, is going to be a value for you and will serve, half of her needs other than the gym and the natatorium. the other benefit is it's a good site. It's located next to the schools, it's located next to the fields, it's located right where all of our camps are. It really makes a lot of good sense. The only thing that just is a bummer is the price tag. So, but
I
that's
like
what
that.
you
I like
guys
that
get
idea. I
paid.
like that idea.
That's what you get paid to deal with, so.
I like that idea. Deputy Mayor Siracusa?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, again, kind of based off of your beautiful presentation you gave to us, I don't know how many months ago it was now, I do believe that first phase would support our Parks and Rec to what they currently offer, and I believe in that plan it doubled the classroom size, correct? With that separate entrance, I believe in your plan that you had, there was double the classrooms, and again, we utilize the Parks and Rec preschool, and you got to get up like super early in the morning to register, or it's filled in seconds flat. So I do believe in a world where money is a factor. We don't have unlimited amounts of money. This would give the community a great opportunity to get what we need, what we currently offer, and in the future have these plans already laid out for things that maybe the community wants later on in life. So
In regards to that, it's a good point. In my, my short list of renovations, I was asked not to include the renovation of the daycare space just because it's not the highest priority renovation. But it would almost be silly not to do that as a part of your project because it's a revenue generating program, and the cost to renovate the classrooms back to viability is really low on a square foot basis because that's what they are, is classrooms. So they should be included in any plan, particularly because it's a low relative square foot cost and it actually generates revenue that supports the programming. Actually, I don't know where the revenue goes. I know it goes to Molly and she uses it for something. Maybe it goes to the town directly first. I don't know. You guys can deal with that. But it's a revenue generating program, so it makes real sense.
So you're saying to do the basic roof ADA and all that, but include in that project to be cost effective to do the daycare separate entrance?
I think so. I think that makes great sense.
Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for coming out and for speaking to us. It's been really helpful. The question I have is with regard to the roof, which seems like it's a must happen, so it's logical that something we'll probably end up doing. Is there a way to do the roof that we can do the roof in such a way, I'm not a roofer, so I don't know, but if I were a roofer, I might say, well, gee, you should have told me you were going to use this for that, because then we wouldn't have done it this way. Is there a way to do the roof in such a way so as to allow for the later projects to go forward? Or is it just a roof, it just needs to be fixed, and that's not going to affect any other projects?
It's pretty much just a roof that needs to be fixed. If you were going to put an addition on the building or change something, the roof could be modified, or there would be a joint where the new construction starts.
I mean, I think lately will it be able to be compatible with solar panels or things like that?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, solar PVC, I don't know what the community's program is on that, but it's very easy to incorporate with a roof assembly. It's a flat roof assembly. It would accommodate it. It would be the ideal time to do it because the panels in the roof would share a similar lifespan. There's lots of opportunities for solar PV. You can either buy it or you can power purchase it. And there's probably a dozen companies that would love to sell you one. But it's a great idea and it would offset the cost. I mean, the original, in theory, the long-term vision for the building is if you were to replace the mechanical systems is we would move towards an all-electric system. So for the classrooms and spaces that are in the existing building, it makes sense to put a VRF system on the roof. It's basically an electric heat pump type system, but it provides heat and air conditioning at the same time. So for the cost of replacing your heating system, you get heat and air conditioning. That all-electric system could be offset by solar photovoltaic generation. And that would make good sense.
And then what would you do first? Would the elevator, if you did the roof, would the elevator, adding on the elevator, would that do anything to the construction of the, if you redid the roof, what would?
Yeah, so this is where strategy comes into play. You have to do the stair tower to meet your code requirements. So
Okay.
doing the addition and the elevator, the addition for the stair, addition for the elevator, as a part of the whole project means that they would, try and do the roof all at the same time.
Okay.
But the reality is, yes, you would do it all as the same project, but it would probably be cut in at a different time because you can do the roof immediately. So what that means is, in technical jargon, is they would put an expansion joint isolating the portion where we're going to put the addition, like in the middle. You know where the building has two sides and it has a little connector? Well, the stair and elevator would go in that middle. Those two sides could have an expansion joint. You would re-roof the building immediately. You would want to protect the building, and then you build the addition, and then they'd put the new roof on the new addition.
Okay.
But
That helps very tremendously.
I've taken up a lot of your time, I'm sorry.
No, it's very helpful. Any other questions? Sure,
Thank you.
Councilor Pendleton.
No, I don't have a question, I just have a question. Sorry.
Question.
We have a lot of information that we need to review that we received this evening. Just all the notes and the minutes from our last meeting. So with patience and consideration of what's moving forward, to bring this up again for discussion. That's what I was going to say. If we could have a little bit of time to go everything.
Yeah,
And
because Mr. Arcari just gave Ms. Center.
plus everything else that we received.
Right.
So give us a little bit of time to be able to review this before we bring it back up on the agenda again.
I think it's the 18th was the plan.
What?
November 18th was the plan to bring it back.
Oh,
But, I mean, we can be flexible if we needed to move it out.
okay. Thank you.
All right? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Arcari.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Montana.
Can I just say one more thing?
Oh, sure.
If I could. We've just finished up, the PBC's just finished up about $162 million worth of elementary school work. That along to what Liz was talking about with the population growth we had with the middle school and everything else. It's not just the middle school. I mean, it's every school. It's the high schools. And I think it would be wise, thinking long-term, just strategic planning, that shuffling around, we all can throw out ideas like build a new middle school or build a new high school, and it really should be brought to the whole town of what do we really need? I mean, it's time. I mean, we've got great school system here in town, but we really need to look at where we're, like the high school is busting at the seams. And there's proposals out there for doing various projects here. We're doing part of this Park and Rec, looking at a swim team that we have at the high school. I think a strategic plan, looking at things holistically would be really important of what do we really need in all of our schools, not just the Park and Rec, which is vital to our town. Looking at a bigger facility. It's a great idea, by the way, adding on a gymnasium onto a school. Some of the schools you can do it, some of the schools you can't because we just don't have the land. But looking at a master plan type of thing with all the schools, what are our needs, talking with Kate Carter about what do we really need, where are the thresholds, what's a population at the middle school, what's a population at the high school, what is it time the town says we need a new high school? Do you like what they just did over in Farmington, and they're going to take the old high school and redo that, repurpose it, and convert that into, a town hall, something that we all might need or benefit. So I appreciate what Tom has brought to us as the PBC. It's really important information. I'm glad you guys were all able to absorb it. I'd love for what Mike had mentioned to us. We have an existing building. I'd love to repurpose it. Thinking about what you did, we really need to think long-term. what are our goals, not just for the park and rec, what are our goals for the schools? Because it's silly money to keep spending and spending and spending without having those goals.
And possibly thinking instead of doing at a regular council meeting, have a special work session meeting where we can all just concentrate on the one and bring PBC and maybe the schools involved. Make sense?
Absolutely, I agree with that, but I also like to say that it's not just the schools, it's also town departments.
Right.
Because we have departments that are in other crunched up areas, you know, so we really need to do a space needs study, I believe, I know, I'm not, yeah, we need a space needs study in our town, because we have grown. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 13B, Counselor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $74,000 of capital non-recurring funds to cover fiber installation and equipment costs associated with the TRAX Communications Tower project. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, November 18th, 2024 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $74,000 of capital non-recurring funds to cover fiber installation and equipment costs associated with the TRAX Communications Tower project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to 13C, Counselor Buganski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution approving a lease agreement with Tarpon Towers to construct a cell tower at 93 Dart Hill Road and locate emergency communication equipment on the tower. Whereas Tarpon Towers 3 LLC is proposing to construct a cell tower located at 93 Dart Hill, and whereas the town of South Windsor has worked with Tarpon Towers 3 LLC on locating town emergency communications equipment on said tower, and whereas this project will improve emergency communication coverage in the Dart Hill, Avery Street, and Niederwerfer Road areas, and whereas the town of South Windsor and Tarpon Towers 3 LLC have agreed to a no-cost lease to locate emergency communication equipment on the tower. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby authorizes Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to sign and execute all necessary agreements, documents, and contracts with Tarpon Towers 3 LLC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just have a quick confirmation.
Counselor Buganski.
Mr. Maniscalco, this is the tower in question that the Siting Council approved on our behalf?
Correct. So the Siting
you.
Council did approve this. It was not on the town's behalf. This is a private cell tower.
Correct.
So,
But again, just wanted to reiterate that this was out of our control for the most part.
correct.
Correct. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 14, passage of ordinance. We have none. Item 15. Moving on to public, excuse me, public input for any matter. Public input for any matter over which the council has jurisdiction shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging any improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item over which the council has jurisdiction. The speakers shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to come forward at this time? Ms. Shaw?
Hi, my name is Burma Shaw. I'm actually not a resident of South
Can
Windsor.
you just twist the microphone closer to you? There you go.
I'm actually a resident of East Windsor. Our towns have been embroiled in a little business over a piece of property called Shank Road, which is in East Windsor, and I watched your October 7th meeting to see you vote on the resolution to give the land back to East Windsor, which I assume is with no consideration. And I just wanted to thank you all and tell you all how very much I respect your gentlemanliness and ladiness in your end of this bargaining and deal-making. It means a lot to the people that live on that road. There are a lot of elderly people there. It means a real lot for them to have the town control it and the town maintain it, especially during seasonal storms and snows. But I really respect you a lot for your above-board and gentlemanly, ladylike dealing in with this, and I appreciate you offering the land back to East Windsor as a public road, for use as a public road, which is for the betterment of the people on Shank Road. I don't speak for them, I only speak for myself. Nobody else in town, just myself. But I really, really, really appreciate what you've done for the residents of Shank Road. And again, your conduct, which is very, I'll be blunt, very unlike our town's conduct, our Board of Selectmen and First Selectmen's conduct in this matter. So thank you very much. I have a lot of respect for you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaw.
May I make a couple of comments also?
Sure.
I didn't hear what your response was to Councilman Pendleton's comments about the Shank Road deal-making being discussed in executive session in East Windsor. Was there a agreement made, a vote made to accept the land?
Sure, go ahead.
I have no knowledge, I don't think anybody has any knowledge of what happened in East Windsor's executive session.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, and since we've had a lot of discussion about this particular matter being discussed in executive session and finger pointing among the council people about the executive session information being leaked, may I respectfully ask you how you learned about what was done in the executive session? I didn't know anybody else knew about it until this meeting.
Oh, it's on the public agenda that they were going to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation with South Windsor. So if you read the agenda, it's on the East Windsor agenda.
Okay.
It's public information.
All right, thank you very much, thank you. And again, thank all of you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward at this time for any matter that? Going once, going twice, seeing none. Moving on to item 16, communications from the council. I have just one little piece. It was in everyone's packet. It's the November 23rd. The South Windsor Lions Club is holding their annual Veterans Day pasta dinner, and it is being held at the South Windsor Fire Department at 1175 Ellington Road. It is from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Adults are $15. Seniors and kids 7 to 12 are $10. Veterans and kids 6 and under are free, and they're having raffles. And the Lions Club is a nonprofit 501c3, so all the monies raised goes directly back to the communities or to the national organization where they see fit, where the monies can go. And there are pre-orders available and meatball subs for $9 to go. So that's what I have. Councilor King?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to try to have the last word. I just wanted to send a shout out to, if you were here this morning for the crew with the voting. Obviously, this is the first time that we've ever done it. I mean, they really knocked it out. There were a couple of speed bumps with the printers and everything, but I can't remember if I heard 500 people have already been through or close to 1,000 have already been through, but the little team that was in here doing their thing, they really knocked it out of the park. And I just wanted to send a shout out to them. I know we had people that came in before our meeting outside of our town to help break it down, and then they're going to build it back up again. Obviously, it goes through to November 3rd, but just a shout out to them and everything that they put in, because people were really in and out. So that was pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items? No? Seeing none? Okay. Moving on to item 17, executive session. We have none. Moving on to item 18, motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Everyone, have a good night. Thank you.